Hello and welcome to Reuzel Live. Today is Monday, May 15th. My name is Nicholas Giberson with Reuzel Education, and today we have an amazing presentation from one of my favorite people, all the way from Omaha, Nebraska, Scumbassador Paul Michael Dunning.
That was a good guess and not accurate at all. Hi, everybody. How we doing? Like Nick said, my name is Paul Dunning. I've been with Reuzel Pomade since they came to the United States, I think 6 or 7 years. And I've learned a lot from them over the time that I've been with them, including this new cut, actually, that I'm going to teach today. So far, we haven't done this one on Facebook Live, and it's something a little different. And people have been asking about, doing something a little bit different on here. So I found the longest haired mannequin I could at my house, deep down in the basement in the cardboard box. And we're going to do a longer haircut today. So when we think Reuzel, we think of very traditional types of haircuts, usually faded and tapered, pompadours and things like that. Those disciplines from the techniques that we do to make those shapes transfer directly to longer masculine shapes. We always say that all of our haircuts are grown out flat tops. And this is a wild example of that being true. This is called the razor cut mop top. There's a couple other names for it, modern mop top, things like that. So we're going to use different tools. We're going to use a little bit different sectioning. We're going to come to different terminal lengths, use a little bit different types of graduation and things. So I think it's going to be, a really good thing. I always like to start out by saying, though, at Reuzel, we teach what we think is the best way to cut hair. It is not the only way to cut hair. So if you learn, a certain type of sectioning or a certain type of parting from this and can just implement it along with how you normally cut hair, that's a success for us as well. But step by step, I feel really strongly about this being the best way to cut longer men's hair. And longer men's hair is getting quite a bit more popular. I've done a couple of these cuts in my shop recently, and the nice thing is you can do very long versions of this, very short versions of this, and as we'll talk about a little bit later on, this is a variable and versatile haircut as well. All of our haircuts at Reuzel start from a baseline or from a primary parting. Usually, I have an example here. Our baseline or our primary parting drops a little bit further down in the back. To maintain some squareness in these longer shapes, one of the main differences that you'll notice is that our primary parting is still, above the parietal and then also above the occipital, sort of straight across rather than dipping down at all. That's just to help build a little bit of extra weight, a little bit of extra graduation from extending those partings out this way. So we'll refer back to this once we talk about cutting the top. And again, I think, we can use all of these techniques in all of the different haircuts that you approach in your shop. So especially with longer hair, our Reuzel hair tonic is, in my opinion, the ultimate detangler. It's got a nice, fresh, clean, masculine smell. And it's a great way to start. It keeps your tools from getting stuck in the hair. It'll sort of help, hair kick out from your tools and not get as hung up in your comb as well. So when we're detangling such a long mop such as this, mix in like an eighth of your bottle of water with hair tonic helps a lot, or directly applying that hair tonic to the top of the head. So we'll comb through here. We'll get all the hair coming back away from the face. And, very rarely do we use clips in the Reuzel technique, but we have so much hair this time. You will use a clip on top just to make sure it stays out of the way, and we can be very purposeful with our parting. So we can pull this all back, and we'll start from the apex of the recession on the forehead of the client. And the apex of the recession is the angle where the hair kind of makes a triangle with the front hairline and the side hairline. And we'll go straight back from there. So on this mannequin, it's a little bit rounder of a shape, but we'll just kind of shoot for the middle of that triangular type section. So something that we talk about a lot amongst ourselves here at Reuzel is when we part, we like to use the wider teeth to sort of set that first preliminary parting in, and then go in with our finer teeth and really, really refine that section to make sure that we have consistency in our haircut. So I'm going to take this around where I went in with the broader, more coarse teeth, and then I'll follow around in the back here, kind of take a sweeping sort of curved shape back here, being careful not to drop it down too terribly much, again, so that we can kind of help maintain that graduation that we're looking to have in the back here. And then I kind of like to meet from the front again. People kind of want to know, how do you make, this horseshoe very symmetrical? I like to take it from the front here. And again, using that kind of wide, almost hook type parting part of my tool. And cutting through here. And another benefit of the Reuzel hair tonic is that it helps to keep the hair sort of moisturized and lubricated throughout the entire cut. And of course, as I say that, I'm wrestling through this kind of stringy mannequin hair, but we've all been there. So we'll kind of twist this up and pin her down on top. And that way, that hair will be out of the way as we go around. Make that a little prettier for you guys. Knot that up. Little sort of samurai bun right there. So we're matched up from corner to corner here, and we swing around to a pretty flat sort of circumferential parting there. So the fun of this cut is that we use a feather type razor, a razor with, the little striations along the blade. One is this protects you from getting cut. The other, obviously, it protects your client. And it keeps you from taking, too much hair too aggressively, too quickly. I say a lot of times, I think it's important to cut hair in ways that your clients haven't seen before. I think it adds value to your service. If you get a client in who's looking for a longer haircut, one, men's haircutting can be pretty, it's not common to cut longer hair. So sometimes they can tell people are a little bit more uncomfortable or don't have a technique to approach it. Two, I think using a tool that shows that you're confident, shows that you've learned a very specific way to do it, like with this feather razor, will also make your client confident as well. So some things to remember while we're using the feather razor is, one, make sure it's very sharp. You don't want it tugging on your client's hair, especially with the little teeth on there. If it gets dull, it will sort of start to drag and tug on the hair. Two, the actual way that we operate this tool helps it to be more comfortable. You don't want to push and drag at any point with this, as much as you want to make sort of a rotating, scooping sort of motion, a sort of little, concentric C-shaped, round sort of hair cutting technique. So what we'll do is we're going to use vertical up and down 90-degree sections all the way around from the bottom of this horseshoe down to the bottom of the nape. The reasoning for that is it helps us build that square, more masculine, less flowing type of shape. It's going to also really help that we're using the razor. It's going to give it a more busted up, more texturized, a little bit more broken type of look. And we get to be like a little bit more avant-garde with the way that we're approaching this. So on the way around, all the way, it almost looks like, prison cell bars as they go down straight now. We'll take the first section which is about as wide as the thinnest part of my comb. And we'll take that first section right out of the front hairline here, going straight down. And the main thing I'm doing is making sure that I'm getting all of the hair from the hairline back into this parting. So as you can see, it goes straight down 90 degrees. It's about as wide as my comb. And the cutting technique calls for direct projection right towards you. Now, body positioning is important for us as well, especially with sort of a more active type of hair cutting with this. If you point your sternum straight at your patient, your client, and use that sort of rotating towards you way of cutting, making sure that this is straight up and down will be a lot easier when your body is forcing you to make those shapes. So we'll take this out, and this is the fun part. This is the part where you get to be a little bit more artistic about it. Do I want to do a very long one? Do I want to do a very short, starting point? I've been doing a lot of the longer ones lately on my own clients. I think it'd be fun to do a little shorter one. And to show you kind of the versatility and utility of doing sort of a medium length haircut with the razor. So let's get started. Now, I took this section out with my coarse teeth. Now I've got it combed out with my finer teeth. And you could drive my Hot Wheels right across the top of that. So this is a 90 degrees straight out from the head. I'm making sure to keep my fingers straight up and down. And I've got all that tension built up. Now, is it a little looser right down here in the crux of my finger? Yes. So we'll get down as far as we can using those little C-shaped partings. And as you can tell, now that we're getting down to the crux of my fingers, I've sort of curled my fingers in and I'm still using tension to pull that towards myself. Nice straight cut, as you can see. And that helps to make sure that that parting gets cut all the way straight down. Our next parting will be, kind of what we call a lawnmower sort of section. So I want to take half of the last panel and then half of the new one from next to it. And that overlap will be our guide. And this is a fully mobile guide for the rest of the time. Each time it comes projected directly 90 degrees away from the head. And each time we're using a straight up and down parting as we cut. So when you're checking yourself, for this in the mirror, it's really convenient to be able to pull this out. And I'm using, obviously, the camera as my mirror at this point. Pull this out, and I can pull past where I cut that last section. And when the little fuzzies kind of start to pop out, I stop, and I cut behind my hands this way. So this is sort of palm to palm, as this way of technique, but just right behind. Some quick sort of little C-shaped motions. Again, kind of curling my fingers in and making sure I'm keeping tension as I'm taking it down. And then pull it out and give it a check. And I'll take the next little half section here. And then we'll have an opportunity to cross-check ourselves. The way that hair fashion travels around the country is kind of interesting. I'm here in Nebraska. Sometimes it takes a year for something that's popular in California or whatever to show up here. So to stay ahead of the game, to keep up with Reuzel Facebook Live, stuff like this, is a nice way to make sure that you're kind of still ahead of the curve. So I'm pulling this out, let a little bit of what's behind it pop out. Perfect. So now we can look and see that this is starting to build a haircut shape. And again, for your client, 3 sections in, to be able to tell that their hair is starting to take shape is confidence inspiring for them and should be for you as well. It's so nice that the techniques that we use at Reuzel start to immediately be very apparent, the type of shape that they're starting to build. Now, when I cross-check this, I'll take this up and then sort of have a side view of it from the horizontal point of view. And if it's a little broken and busted along, the bottom of the hairline, that's totally okay. But we're just looking to make sure that it's straight. If I were to see something that I needed to cut off, a way that I could sort of avoid overdoing it would be to pick it up and cut those little bit longer sections, again, with sort of a tornado type of C-shaped cutting motion. And then that way we make sure that we don't build too structured of a refinement. We don't want to cut too straight of a line as we're doing this. So after about 3 panels, we did our cross section, our cross checking, and I'm using the coarse teeth of my comb to pull out my next section. And we're just about to get behind the ear here, in which case we're going to have to change our approach just a little bit. So this is looking great so far. But once we get back here, obviously the nape sort of extends down and we have more hair to cut. The way that we approach this is by cutting about the same amount of a panel we were cutting above that before, and then coming back and refining underneath of it. It's an option to just take this parting straight down and cut it all at once. But in my experience so far in the shop, it's really nice to have a guide that's totally built right above it so that I can move down to the nape with a little bit more confidence. So that's the way we're going to approach it today. So I'm taking out this section above the nape here, pulling in that hair. I was using my wide teeth there. Now I need a little bit more tension, building that tension up with my finer teeth. Pull it towards myself, a little bit starts popping out. Such a satisfying sound too. I'm sure my mic's not picking that up, but it's a lot like shaving a face or the back of the neck. Got a really pleasant sound that the client sort of enjoys. And you know what's interesting? I've had guys say that this is a very comfortable haircut. They sort of like that repetitive, almost tugging motion on the hair. And I was nervous that this would be one that was sort of a beauty is pain type of haircut, like I'd be tugging on my clients, but that hasn't been the case so far. So did about 3 more sections. And I'll pick this up with my coarse teeth, have a nice look at that, looking real straight and kind of busted up. And sometimes it's about the hair you leave, not the hair you cut. If you don't have to cross check, if you don't have to cut into something, don't. Take my next section out from behind this, and again, just kind of doing the same amount of hair that was up above here, up above the ear here, we're going to do in the back. Get that combed out towards me. And having a very structured, very metered way of cutting longer shapes is great because it's quite easy to get lost in longer hair. It can kind of stack up, cover up your old guides and things like that. So I've really appreciated in the shop so far just feeling confident that I can find my next parting very easily. At Reuzel, we find ourselves sort of in this middle school of thought of, partings are very, very important. They should be straight. They should be clean. But at the same time, being able to get through them quickly is important as well. And so this is the best of both worlds. You can move relatively quickly, pretty easy to find your place, but they're very clean partings that are easy to follow. And I tell you what, some of these feather razor handles can be very, very expensive. If you want to try this technique and, don't want to shell out all that cash, certainly go for, the cheaper tool beforehand. The thing that you should really invest in is good blades. The sharper the blade, the much easier, it'll be for you to cut, as well as more comfortable for your client. So if you're going to make an initial investment on trying to cut feather razor style, get the good, nice, sharp blade. And again, as we're moving, you can sort of see, ignoring this part, that we're building a nice shape in our haircut here, which is exciting as you're moving along as the artist to get to see sort of the fruits of your labor come together. Throughout this, haircutting class here, if anybody has any questions, feel free to post them up in the comments and Nick can relay them to me. And we'll try to cover as much as we can for you all. So we're moving around the back here. And obviously, since I'm in front of the camera, I've been moving the head. For ergonomics sake, as you're cutting in the shop, you want to kind of move around the head physically so that your feet
in your chest and stay in the front of the client. So as we're moving each section, either move the chair with the client or move your body physically around the client. So another about comb width of parting here. And this is such a sort of zen, satisfying way of cutting hair. I do think it'd be exciting if some folks tried it and kind of let us know what they think of it. Every time I mow my lawn now, I think about the fact that you take half of a section when you're mowing your lawn, you even have guides. Using those little C-shaped cuts towards myself. And again, since this razor has guards on it, I can sort of bump it up against my skin and it's no big deal. You see some barbers using a straight blade, like that they would shave with to do this, and that certainly would work as well. But I might just not have the cojones to try it that way. Maintaining that tension, making sure I'm cutting straight down the line here. And now we're coming into the section where we'll not need to drop bottom out. We'll be right about above the ear here in just a moment. And you could certainly approach this as well if you're not comfortable with the razor portion of the technique. You could certainly try it with a point cutting type of approach, but really I think this is the much more easy and effective way of removing this hair quickly and efficiently. So we're starting to get above the ear here. Pulling this out, letting the hair kind of fall away, cut down towards my fingers. And again, it's so nice to sort of see those layers building up as we're cutting. And I think sometimes, we'll see a new hair cutting technique being cut, and we'll think, when will I ever be able to apply that, in my own shop or behind my own chair? But just to reiterate, this is one of those cuts that, you could take this as close to the head as you wanted. You could take this as far away from the head as you wanted. Very, very versatile. And the way that we've structured this cut, it will still hold the same shapes, whether it's longer or shorter. So sort of a good catch-all for longer, more blended, more textured type of shapes like this. So keeping in mind that as I'm pulling these sections away, I'm pulling them 90 degrees straight out from the head towards myself like so. And our last one, oh so satisfying, pull that out. And then a nice little check I like to do right here towards the end. It's sort of that classic temple to temple check where you pull the hair away from the same place on the head and see where it lands out in front of you. And the great thing about how metered this haircut is that these are perfectly even at the front. And honestly, I wasn't putting that much thought into having that happen. It's just how meticulous of those little half sections come along. It's very easy for it to end up matching at the end. So what I think is one of the cooler parts of this haircut is down in the nape. So what we'll do is we'll come and we'll use the bottom of the top side partings here, and we'll cut down from there. One of the sort of variable ways to put your signature on this haircut to really make it your own is this is where you could have it sort of bevel in a little bit towards the nape for a softer look. Or in my case, I like to keep it really square down here for kind of that tattered, almost sort of shaggish look. So just keep in mind that this bottom section is where some of that creativity can come in. Graduate it in a little bit, or even if you were shooting for sort of more of a mullet shape, you could even graduate it out to build more length. But in my case, just to kind of showcase the very base level of how this haircut works, we're going to cut it square down from here. You may have noticed I just re-wet the hair a little bit. Normally, I'd almost be done with this cut if we weren't teaching it. And this hair tonic usually helps keep it moisturized for the duration of a half-hour haircut in your shop. So part of cutting with the razor is to make sure that the hair is wet enough to help lubricate the razor through the hair so it doesn't get too hung up. So I'll take this hair out, pull it directly away from the head, and you can see the hair from the bottom here starting to fall out. I keep pulling it and cutting away from it like so. And boom, you can see that shape starting to form down through here. Now, just like with all of our cuts, there is sort of a refinement step to this. So I think it's important to remember that you don't try too hard to refine as you're cutting this haircut, but sort of depend on the process and trust the process. So I'll take that next section away here behind the one I just did. Coarse teeth to get it pulled out. Fine teeth to help get it tension. Straight down towards the nape like that. Now, if you do feel like you have to have your client tilt, you need to remember that we're trying to make these square straight up and down. So every opportunity I have when I'm trying to cut a square shape to just keep the client's head straight up and down helps you to not have to sort of change the geometry of the angle of your section. That's also important to keep in mind. Head position is something that can strongly affect the partings and the haircuts. Get this pulled out here. And there are times where I'll use the upcoming top portion of this technique with, shorter sides because I like just how much texture and movement it builds. So again, sort of like I mentioned at the beginning of the class here, some facet of this will certainly be usable in your guys' shop. Now you can see where some of the terminal length is starting to cut away from here. We're seeing more of about where our neckline will be, but that's also something that's sort of up to your artistic discretion. And obviously, if your client wasn't made out of rubber and plastic, your client would have something to say about, where they want that final length to be and what they want their layers to be like. And there's room for adjustment. So we're coming to the other side of the nape here. We're about done with the bottom half of this cut.
Hey, Paul.
Before the finishing, refining stages of it.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Pull this out in the way, and I can match this one up with where I left out on the side here. Very nice. So that has a lot of broken sort of movement. And again, it's fun to try something a little different. Normally we have such tapered shapes, such fine, sort of fades and things like that. And that always looks sharp, but sometimes, the client would prefer a more natural sort of hairline. So I'll re-wet here and we'll talk about the section on the top. And again, there are so many times where it sort of harkens back to, that square, boxy sort of flat top look. So we'll cut it into sections that make it easy for us to maintain lots and lots of texture, squareness, and graduation as we come down. I've done this cut on quite a few of my clients, and I don't shy away from doing this on wavy or sort of curly hair. I think this technique works well with that as well. In fact, I think I'll kind of break curl patterns up and make them do their own thing a little bit better. But for very straight hair or for slightly wavy hair, I think it's ideal. I really like the texture of hair. Beautiful. So now that we're all coming back together, it's a good opportunity to readdress the primary parting that we do to start with, and then we'll part in the top partings that we use for cutting. So again, the apex of the recession, coming down like so, and then this, baseline parting that we did down here with the primary sectioning will contribute to the guide at the top. Nice straight line come around through the back. And then, like I said, I like to kind of meet it from the front. I'll leave my finger at the back of the section that I'm going to do, comb through and have it meet up.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Yeah, get this about out of that way. Perfect. So let's look at my little bald section man here. The way that we're going to do this is go up from the middle of the ear and up through the round of the head. We'll part a section right down through the middle, and then we'll go from the recession to the round. So this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panel parting up here on the top. We do this side to side. If you wanted to avoid having to clip all of these sections away themselves, I do it sort of half and half at a time. And I think just for ease of being able to see the partings well, we'll approach it that way. But it's never a bad idea to sort of really set in the sections that you're used to, before you, or the sections that you aren't so used to before you get into it here. So we'll go as straight down the middle as we can. And I am kind of dropping this hair over that primary section that I just did. That's on purpose, since that's going to end up being our guide. I shampooed and conditioned this mannequin, and like I said, it's very old, but starting out a haircut where you're going to be doing a lot of combing with longer shapes, using our conditioner to help really make the hair smooth and detangled and comfortable to cut for both you and your client. A nice clean with our daily shampoo, get you nice and smoothed out with the conditioner, and you're on your way, baby. Okay, so we'll shoot one down the middle like so. We'll catch one sort of behind the ear in this case, around above the round of the head here. And one from the point down to the apex of the section. And then we would copy those on the other side. So let's have a look here. You can see, here we go, this section in the front going up to the round, and the behind the ear section going straight up to the middle of the round. The round of the head is what I'm referring to there. Now we'll go in, I'm going to refine these sections with my finer teeth. And the hair tonic is helping keep these partings and sections in place. Part of the reason that you don't always have to use a clip, unless that's sort of more in your comfort zone, but you can avoid using a clip if you just have plenty of hair tonic in there to keep the hair sort of grouped together. So now we're going to take this section and comb it towards ourselves in horizontal partings. So this section is going to get cut in horizontal sections straight down to that primary parting we put in before. Usually this will take probably 2 or 3 partings worth of sectioning. And I'll use this clip to keep that out of the way. So instead of cutting down towards our fingers like this, we take this section up, we hold it parallel to the ground, away from the head at a 90 degree, and cut from your dominant side in towards the end of that section. And it might take a couple readjustments here, since it'll be sort of a wide section at first. But I'm trying to pull this directly away from the head, straight towards myself, and then use that sort of tornado C-shaped cutting technique towards my hands. And, oh, that's satisfying when that starts to land and make a nice textured shape back here. So I'll pull this over. And since this is a mannequin, it looks like I might not have to use quite as many sections since it's finer hair. I'll use my fine teeth, make this nice, easily visible section. Let some of that hair start to fall out. You can actually see it do it right there. Some nice C-shaped partings, or excuse me, cutting shapes. And similarly to how we checked our work on the sides, we can also pick this up and kind of bust up some of that shape a little bit, just razor over comb. And since this is a very sort of loose and non-structured way of holding the hair, it helps with, you know, the textured sort of chunkiness of the way that we're looking for this haircut to turn out. All right, so this new section, along with the baseline preliminary parting that we have, will be our goal for this side section. So I'll pull up a horizontal parting here on the side, and I'm going to want to cut from this side, which is a great way to start a guide, towards the front of the face here. And we are doing this in just that very horizontal sectioning approach. So I'm pulling this out falls that hair, and I will cut towards the face.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Perfect. Now, we'll take horizontal sections through this triangle. And this, again, is where a little bit of that fingerprint or a little bit of that artistic discretion gets to come in. I like to add a little bit of extra length towards the front. So I might, you know, graduate this hair forward with a projection with my fingers. You could keep the bang or the fringe a little bit shorter and just go straight and cut it this way. But like I said, I'm feeling kind of that longer towards the front look. So I'll take this up. I'll find my last section over here. I'll pull it straight out. I'll angle my fingers a little bit down towards the chin of the client. Beautiful. And we'll take that last of the long wrapping out. The same thing there. We're going to pick up all this hair from the bottom, pick up the hair from this other section on the side, and cut towards the face again. In the same way that you palm your shears to make your client feel more comfortable, you also kind of keep your razor held in your hand away from their face as well. All right, so that side is finished, and you can see that nice textured sort of moppy look to it. So we'll section off this other side.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
We'll make that parting right behind the ear from the round of the head. matching the one from the other side. So here's one, like so. And then we'll take from the round, from the peak up here, towards the front, make this triangle up here in the front.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
And again, we'll refine those sections with the finer teeth of the comb. And, you know, every once in a while I'll see folks cutting with a comb that doesn't have differentiation and, you know, one side being fine and one side being coarse. I think you miss an opportunity with that. I think, you know, you should have the ability to build more tension with finer teeth in the comb. You know, it's one of those sort of let the tools do most of the work type of things. So we'll take this section here in the back. We've got the straight parting right down through the middle here. And you've got this triangle built up from the parting behind the ear up to the round. And we're going to go in there and find that baseline parting, that preliminary section. So I'm picking this up, and a reminder, I'm holding it 90 degrees away from the client's head and cutting, you know, towards the center. You can see that's matching up nicely. Whack this section. Again, we're doing horizontal through here.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Pick it up, come towards me. Straight out from the head, and then you can see that hair start to fall out. And maybe one more here. Pick this up, pull it towards me. Let that hair drop out. Perfect. Now we get the satisfaction of seeing those two sections meet and make some nice, you know, textured sort of moppy shape. So we'll come from the in front of the ear section here. Cut that horizontally with our section. Pull this out towards me and cut again towards the face here. So I'm using the section from behind it and sort of using my discretion as to trying to make this straight across. Knock this section out of here. 90 degrees out like so. See that hair fall out. And, you know, again, once you have a technique like this that's very well established, it may seem like this is a, you know, very, very challenging or time consuming sort of haircut. And it doesn't need to be that way. You know, once you have this down, you'll be whipping right through this in no time. Grab some of this section horizontally through here. Knead it to this. Pull it out from the head. And again, I get to be kind of creative and cut at an angle away from the face. Last little part of it here. Pull it out, boom, you can see that hair fall out. And then we'll kind of pull this towards the front. And you can see that it sort of makes a triangular kind of peak shape. And that's where those two sections of projected out hair meet. So that's good. That'll pull up back past the back. So to finish the top of this, and again, sort of to reiterate that every haircut is just a, you know, thrown out flat top. We pull all this back. And we take a top section, sort of a mohawk type shape section. We call this the zone 4 here. and it ends at about the same place where the preliminary party ends in the back. I think I just said preliminary party. Well, it is kind of a park. So you can see here, maybe we'll scoot it over a little bit more. But here's that mohawk shaped parting. It'll come down to the background there. And we're going to use a technique called scalloping here. So I'll take my first section from the front. We're taking that horizontal section out of the mohawk. I'm pulling this up and I can see from both sides where my preliminary parting ends on each side of this mohawk shaped parting. So I'll find those. And again, I'm going to try to use sort of a cleaner, cone width parting on this first one to be really sure that we establish an easy to follow guide right from the get-go. Pull it up, see it start to fall out on each side. Scalloping is when you take your thumb, you pinch the hair in between here, and you sort of make a rocking, smooth motion. Obviously, don't try this with a non-carded razor or you're going to the hospital. But take this, pinch it, like scalloping potato. And I'm using the tension between my fingers to make sure that I'm not ripping my client's brains out here. You don't want them to feel too terribly much of this. And that's another important reason to use a really sharp razor. I'll take half this section, like we talked about, mowing the lawn, and scoot back. So now I can see the short hair on each side, and I can see the short hair through the top as well that I just cut.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
This is making it so that it doesn't have too much of a sort of bobbed or harsh weight line. As this hair falls, it doesn't come down to the cheek line. It falls into the rest of the layering that we spent all that effort in producing. So it's nice that this is a very strong contributor to the final shape of the cut. So what seems like sort of a satellite part of the process is actually very important. I'll tell you what, this is a fun way to cut hair. So many times it's kind of a bummer to see people get caught in a rut, or they heard people say they don't think hair cutting's fun anymore, or they don't enjoy it. That breaks my heart. I mean, I love this industry. I love being a part of it, and I never want to not feel like I'm having fun. So if you need a new way to try to cut some stuff, build up your confidence on this one and have it go. So this hair is going to come down and meet nicely. And you can see this cool, shattered up mop top type of shape. And, since I did a squarer parting back here, there's a little bit more hair to kind of curve in and make some of that tattered looking shape on the side. Now, what I like to do is go through and do some refinement. And what I mean by that is I'm going to do some slide cutting with a straight shear to add even more movement to this shape. So what I'll do is I'll sort of very loosely follow the types of shapes, or excuse me, the types of partings that I was doing initially in the haircut. And I'm going to hold and project this hair out just a little bit and kind of feather my shears through here to do some slide cutting or some channel cutting, however you like to refer to it. This is going to take some weight out, add some extra movement, add some extra dimension. If you do hair coloring in your shop, a haircut like this will really, really help to expose all of the different, hair layers of color in there. And again, for your client's comfort, you want to make sure you're keeping the shear moving, that you've got a real sharp shear to do this with. I'm going to angle his head down just a little bit. And I'm going to take some of this length out towards the bottom here. Just point cutting through that. I don't want it to be quite as, you know, mullet shape. But the nice thing about this is it doesn't detract from the layering. It's strictly taking away from, you know, the terminal length at the bottom of the shape. And then again, I'll slide cut through this nape. Make sure we've got plenty of chunky, nice movement. And this is such a fun, nice change of pace. I love cutting with clippers. That's why I do what I do. But man, is it nice, you know, using some different tools, using some different techniques. Pull this up, we'll comb this down here, do a little bit more channel cutting. And there are times where you can actually see where some of that heavier, you know, weight transfer comes in. So I really want to bust that stuff up. If I inadvertently put in any weight lines or something somehow, maybe not cross-checking strong enough or whatever, I can go through and try to bust some of that up as well. And I'm holding and projecting this hair so that I can see through it color-wise.
Hey, Paul,
So
can
what
you
I'm
hear
going to
me?
do now is I'm going to quickly style this. The way I like to do broken, more textured shapes is with our Surf Tonic. It's a salt type spray. It's very comfortable. It's not tacky. It's not gritty, but it does help showcase the work that you put in to making a strongly textured haircut shape. It's great for curlier hair. It's great for short and textured type of haircuts. And in this case, sort of a longer one as well. We're going to use just a finger blow dry technique with this. And then at the end, you know, we might have a little time for questions. But I'll blow through this quickly. We'll get it nice and texturized, throw a little product in, be looking good. Now, when we approach this, you don't want to blow anything too straight or anything too structured. You really want it to be its wild, not top, chopped up shape. Don't want it to conform too terribly much to any sort of other traditional type of blow dry. We're doing high speed, high heat. And that Surf Tonic is so comfortable to work with. My fingers just slide right through it. If you distribute that Surf Tonic really uniformly through the hair, it helps to have a real uniform blow dry. Pulling this a little bit back and away from the space since I left some of that longer shape in front. I kind of wanted to have that feathered back type of look to it. That Surf Tonic is contributing to the texture of the hair. Hopefully it adds just a little bit of volume. And there's not too terribly much of a shine to our Surf Tonic. So really it helps showcase that natural coloration, the natural discrepancies of color in the hair. You see plenty of that contrast. And it's so fun that you can just be wild with this. And a lot of guys that are looking for that longer, low maintenance type of haircut, I mean, look at how easy this is for me to style, especially with that tonic, building up volume, looking great. And we don't want to settle this down too terribly much, but we'll get some of those crazy stringies moved over to the sides. And on your client, you just let the parting do its own thing. You know, if it splits sort of down the middle or a little off center. But you can see how usable of a haircut this is. That nice texture in it. That nice broken shape that's real low maintenance. And then you can also tell just from looking at this, you know, that you could cut this significantly shorter, you could cut it significantly longer, and it's going to look very similar. I would suggest using a little grooming cream. It's kind of our softest tube cream type of product. Really what I like to use it for is, again, just to help get some more contrast out of the hair. So I tell people you can always inflate something, or excuse me, you can always deflate, but it's hard to inflate. So get this shape big and wild and crazy, and then it's so much easier to just sort of tone it down from there than to try to get more texture or more height or more volume later on. Yes, sir. So look through here and look at all that nice texture that comes from the razor. You know, that comes from the way that we section, the technique that we approach it with. You know, you get to kind of clear off someone's forehead, even though you have all of this extra length. You can help gentlemen, or really anybody, keep the hair out of their faces by having a little bit more length, like I put in towards the front. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the razor cut mop top. We're available to answer questions on anything, you know, regarding the cut or regarding the products. You know, feel free to reach out to us if you're sort of concerned about trying a new tool or a new technique, and we can certainly try to help. But that's all I have for you today. Thanks for taking the time out of your Monday to come and check us out. And I greatly appreciate it.
Hey,
Nick,
Paul.
do we have any questions at the end?
Hey, Paul, can you hear me? No, he can't hear me. I think his headphones are not connected. Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us today on Monday. Just wanted to give you a heads up. June 12th is going to be our next presentation. We have a very special presentation all the way from Antigua, Guatemala.
Our headphones here.
We'll have International Scumbassador Romeo Batris. The presentation will be in Spanish. We will see you then. Have a great week.